This is the story of John Pork. A tale of deception, of betrayal, and of death. Long ago in these wretched streets lived a group of 4 animals: John Pork, Tim Cheese, Simon Claw, and Pengu. This group was born into a cruel world. Forced to flee their shelter due to poor conditions, all 4 of them were forced to live in utter poverty. The prey, John and Pengu, took to distributing drugs. Fronting cocaine and methamphetamines, the pair became so good at their job that they got noticed by Bob Bacon's crime syndicate, earning them a spot in his ranks. Whereas the predators, Tim and Simon, plunged into the world of racketeering, gun running, and assassination work. The prey gained prestige and notoriety in the streets, whereas the predators gained power and respect, and thus a rift began to form between our Fantastic Four. Around this time, Tim Cheese had been offered a promising contract, 100,000 Solana in exchange for the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. Tim Cheese packed a silenced Car 98K and took to the rooftops. Zeroing in his sights, Tim Cheese took aim and fired, eliminating the CEO in one shot. This put the spotlight on Tim Cheese, attracting not only the feds, but a lover as well. Tina Cheese fell in love with Tim, and Simon was going to be the best man at their wedding. On the other side of our story, the prey had found their own success, with John and Pengu launching the Pork Coin. The coin gained billions in market cap. Investors were flying in, but John had another plan. He rug-pulled the entire operation, earning himself a handsome $20 billion. This sum dwarfed Tim's collection of Solana, which began to entice Tina. On March 23, 2025, 3 days before Tim and Tina's marriage, John had sent Tina a message for the first time in months. But to Tim's horror, it was Tina getting her back blown out by John's fat hog, with the caption, "She's busy right now, little mouse." This flung Tim into a rage. He swore from that day onward that he would exact his revenge.
I have a message from my husband, Tim Cheese. Tim, I loved John Pork. And do you know why? Because he was everything you refused to be.
Tim strapped up, ready for revenge. That night he got the drop of John and Pengu's location from a secret contact. He darted to the location, lurking in the shadows. He spotted the pair and delivered the final blow, killing John Pork instantly. After that night, Tim hopped on IG Live to state the news and plead his case.
You all think you know the story. You don't. John Pork, he was never supposed to exist. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he was a legend, but legends fade. All it took was a message, one message, and he walked right into my sights.
The alleged killing of John Pork infuriated Bob Bacon, who was forced to call his boss, Agent 5.5. This also attracted Marvin Beek, a famous hitman who acted as a benefactor for the law. Additionally, he had a long-standing grudge against Simon Claw. Factions began to form, and people began to get angry. This could only end one way. Agent 5.5 began assembling his forces. Knowing that Tim would go after Pengu next, he decided to play it defensively. Simon Claw had just made a purchase for a flock of robotic pigeons. Being small and stealthy, these devices acted as a tool for reconnaissance, allowing the 2-man army to scout out Agent 5.5's compound and plan their assault. Later that day, as Marvin Beek was entering the compound for a debrief, he began to notice something strange. A swarm of pigeons began to circle the top of the compound, and then he heard it. A C4 detonation, followed by a panther's roar. Simon Claw had infiltrated the compound. Simon had blown through the walls of the building, cleaving his way through the guards, before reaching the office where the elites of the Brain Rot Force reside. He kicked down the door and delivered 2 shots in a heartbeat. One hit Pengu in the shoulder, injuring him severely, and the other hit Bob Bacon in the head, killing him instantly. The gang war between the Brain Rot Force and the Two-Man Army had already claimed the lives of 2 pigs, but it was only going to get more deadly from here on out. For a little while after the ambush on the compound, things seemed to calm down a little, but Simon and Tim knew something was up. They decided to leave the city and hide in their safe house in the countryside while they planned their next move. But little did they know that they were being watched. Marvin Beek was tasked with scouting the pair's location. He tracked them far into the countryside, finding their safe house. He radioed Agent 5.5, alerting him of the news. Agent 5.5, an injured Pengu, and a handful of the Brain Rot Force's most elite soldiers were en route, with them and an arsenal of guns, grenades, and cheese. Tim woke up one day, feeling restless. His nose was bugging him, and that's when he smelt it, the subtle aroma of sweet cheese. He turned on his security cameras to see that a delivery of cheese had arrived at his doorstep. He assumed that Simon Claw ordered it as a present for the victory at the compound. He opened the door, examining the cheese, and that's when he realized he was lacking. A violent eagle screech signaled for a hail of bullets to fire at Tim's position. It was an ambush, and he had fallen for it. Simon had woken up and brought in Tim guns. They were ready to defend their home. Simon and Tim mowed through the pig soldiers. Their tactical expertise outclassed these lowly street thugs. By the end of the night, all that remained of the Brain Rot forces were Agent 5.5, an injured Pengu, and Marvin Beek. The 3 began to advance inside the house, with Agent 5.5 taking the lead. As soon as they entered the house, shots began to fly. Pengu was forced to stay back due to his injuries, whereas Marvin Beek and Simon Claw began to fight. But in return, Tim Cheese was able to capture Agent 5.5, fleeing the scene on his motorcycle before catching the train to the nearest port. The Brain Rot forces had captured Simon Claw, but at what cost? Tim Cheese had smuggled Agent 5.5 into a duffel bag before boarding his private yacht. He planned to take him to Cheese Island to keep 5.5 hostage in exchange for Simon Claw. As soon as Tim reached the island, Agent 5.5 managed to escape his duffel bag, running as far as he could into the jungle. He quickly contacted Marvin Beek with his satellite phone, telling him his coordinates. Operation Cheese was in full swing. Marvin Beek had signaled the entire Brain Rot force to commence their attack on Cheese Island. With talent such as the Quavius Pork Freak Bob and Phase Adapt, Agent 5.5 ordered the Brain Rot force to bring out the submarine. This was their only shot at killing Tim Cheese.